Today, we're back here at the Itaipu hydroelectric plant in Foz do Iguaçu, Parana. But this time to see beyond the plant. We're going to understand how Itaipu ensures that the water from this lake, this huge reservoir, arrives clean and in sufficient quantity for irrigation, for people, for leisure, and most importantly, to generate electricity. Shall we check it out? At your house, to turn on the lights, watch TV, or use the computer, you need electricity. And the main source of this type of energy in Brazil comes from hydroelectric plants like this one, Itaipu Binacional, which is located on the border between Brazil and Paraguay. It provides energy to millions of people in both countries. We've already seen, in other Boravez episodes, who transforms the power of water into electricity. The water passes through the turbines, generates energy, and continues its path along the Parana River. But for the turbines to spin, a lot of water is needed. Just so you have an idea, this is the pipeline that carries water from the reservoir to the turbine. The thing is, Itaipu has 20 of these here, and what supplies this huge reservoir that feeds the plant is the rain that falls throughout the Parana River basin from here upstream. The water comes from rain that falls over a huge area, often far from here. This water may have come from Minas Gerais, Goiás, Mato Grosso do Sul, São Paulo, Parana, and Paraguay. And part of the rain comes from even farther away, from the Amazon rainforest. The wind carries this moisture from the forest, and this air current with water droplets passes through several states until it gets here. And rain is a meteorological phenomenon. You can't manufacture rain. So, how do we make sure that Itaipu will always have water to operate, that the turbines won't run short of water? The secret is to make the most of and take good care of every drop that falls. And we do that by planting water. But can you really plant water? That's exactly what you heard. But planting water has nothing to do with watering the soil. It means taking care of the soil, the vegetation, and the biodiversity so that the water keeps following its natural path. It keeps circulating, reaching rivers, lakes, and springs in good condition. Today, we're going to see 3 examples of how this works in practice. The work of Itaipu with the farmers in the region, how Itaipu preserves a lot of plants and animals, and how they check if the water that reaches the reservoir is in good condition, and if the project is working. It all starts with the farmers. They are the people who are closest to the source of the water, to the springs themselves. That's why I came to visit 3 municipalities that are around the lake, in the western region of the state of Parana, who makes agreements with municipal governments, technical agencies, and universities to offer free technical assistance to farmers. It's a partnership. Itaipu helps the farmer produce more while spending less, and as a result, he ends up taking better care of the water. This is where everything literally begins. If you've never seen a spring, it's a pleasure to introduce you to one. Water is not only springing from the ground, but is also clean, LD. You may have noticed that there's a structure built with earth mixed with cement. Inside, there are a lot of stones, and the purpose of that is, first, to create a reservoir. So, even when the spring is weak, there's some water stored here, and at the same time, it serves as a filter. At the bottom, there's an outlet in case it's necessary to drain the water. And up here, there's a pipe where you can add a little chlorine if you need to do any treatment. It's a structure with a very low cost that makes use of materials already available in the region. The question is, where does this water come from? Is it an underground reservoir that's been there for millions and millions of years? No, this water comes from the rain. When it rains, the water seeps into the soil and goes down until it reaches a layer where it gets stored. We call this the water table. A spring forms where the water table is closer to the surface, and then the water comes out. But all this happens when we have good conditions and everything is working. It's not always like that. For example, if in the place where the water falls, there is no forest, no vegetation on top, it just runs off and doesn't penetrate the soil. It carries the soil with it, causes erosion, and can even cause a flood downstream. Or, if we have a spring like this one that's open, with a lot of cattle around, the cows and oxen can step here, compact the soil, and then the water stops coming out. So, the whole secret of the work we're doing today is to keep this cycle working really well. It's about making sure that rainwater can enter the soil, and then come out clean on the other side. When the water from several springs comes together and already forms a river, there's another job, which is to preserve this forest that's around it, protecting it. It protects the river, just like eyelashes protect our eyes. That's why it's called riparian forest. This one that's passing by my side is the Saojo River, which divides the municipality of Misal from Itaipu, India. And in this region, Itaipu financed not only more than 1,000 kilometers of fencing to properly mark and protect the riparian forest, but also helped replant trees where this protection no longer existed. We also visited another spring that was completely restored, which was in the middle of an almost dead pasture. So this spring, where we are now, for example, wasn't like this at first. It was restored. All this vegetation you see behind me is a reforested area. The cattle used to be able to get here and could compact the soil, but now everything is fenced off. They also built a whole structure to collect the water in the best way. So this stream you're seeing isn't all of the water. A good part is being collected by that pipe down there and taken for the cattle to drink. The water can also serve as a new source of income. We're now at a tilapia farm. So, these tanks are used to fatten the fish. Another way to take care of the soil is to build these step-like terraces into the land. If they didn't exist, when the rain falls, it would run off very quickly. That causes erosion. It wears down the soil. It also fills the rivers very quickly, and it can cause flooding. But not here. The rain that fell on the road, that's coming from the cornfield, stops here and soaks into the soil. It is slowed down, and at the same time it can replenish the springs, the water table. This straw isn't here by chance either. It serves as a kind of shield. First, it protects against the rain, which won't hit the ground directly and wash it away. Second, it makes the water seep slowly into the soil. Third, it protects from heat since the sun doesn't hit directly. And fourth, it still keeps life down here, making the straw itself decompose and release nutrients, feeding the soil. This road here is very different from what you're used to seeing. It was funded by Itaipu, and when you're driving, you notice there are several little hills along the way. That's on purpose. It's made so that when water falls on the road, it's forced to run off to the sides, and then it flows into that terracing system. Another interesting thing here is that the road is raised compared to the fields. So when it rains, the road won't turn into a river. On the contrary, the water slides off, so the road is always dry. It doesn't get muddy. And you also won't get those giant holes that erosion we're used to seeing on the sides of dirt roads. An important part of this work is done in Foz do Iguaçu, at the Bela Vista Biological Refuge. It's an area created by Itaipu to preserve the nature around the power plant. They do research, environmental education, and have a zoo with 200 animals from 50 species of the Atlantic forest: macaw, alligator, snake, owl, and jaguar. Look how beautiful these black panthers are. And yes, it's black, but it's a jaguar. Sometimes jaguars are born black. If you look closely, you can see the spots on their backs. There's also a nursery for native Atlantic forest seedlings here, which supplies not only Itaipu's projects, but also city governments and communities throughout Paraná and Mato Grosso do Sul. There are 130 species, and they collect the seeds directly from nature. There's a mapping, georeference records for each seed tree, the parent trees. Some of these seeds are spread to other places, and some are used to grow seedlings. 350,000 seedlings are produced each year. Red angico, patanga, and peiroxo, pink cedar gabiroba, white fig tree, and this one here is the pink peroba. It was widely used as timber. Nowadays, we mostly find it as reclaimed wood, which is why it's an endangered tree. But because of the work they're doing here, maybe it won't be in a few years. The refuge has important animal conservation efforts, like the jaguar and the largest eagle in the world, which is the harpy eagle, also known as the harpy. Harpy eagles are birds of prey. They hunt. They're very strong and help control the population of other animals in the forests. This conservation program has run for over 20 years and is the world's largest breeding program for this species. By now, they've already seen generations of harpy eagles born in captivity reproducing here, and that's a great sign, showing that the effort to breed the species is working. This one is 5 days old, just born, and is in an incubator at the veterinary hospital. And there's more from here at the refuge. There's a 19-kilometer biological corridor that goes all the way to Iguaçu National Park, where the waterfalls are. And this corridor is very important to let the animals move from one side to the other so they can reproduce and keep the populations healthy. This here is simply the largest land mammal in South America, and this tapir has a calf. I'll speak softly because she's nursing. If this isn't worth a like, I don't know what is. Look, something I just found out here is that this tapir's crest works kind of like a shield. So if it's attacked by a jaguar, the jaguar grabs here but can't hurt it that much. It manages to get into the bushes, breaking through everything, and then it goes into the water. So this here, besides serving as protection against the jaguar, is also protection against the bushes that it breaks through with its back. But wait, up until now, I was talking about water. What does an animal refuge have to do with that? Taking care of the whole ecosystem helps nature maintain balance. There are birds that spread seeds, predators that control the population of other animals, vegetation that protects the soil.
Tudo isso cria uma condição completa.
And so the water arrives clean. After all this care, the water finally reaches the reservoir. And then comes another stage, monitoring. The technicians measure the rainfall, the river levels, and the volume of water that reaches the lake to know if the amount is sufficient. And here, they want to check the health of the reservoir to know if the water is decent, not dirty or clouded. But the lake covers 1,350 square kilometers to cover this whole area. They use floating rafts, like the raft has solar panels, and every 3 hours, it lowers a probe down to the bottom to measure the oxygen level, acidity, and temperature. Lack of oxygen, for example, can kill the fish, or if the water is too murky, sunlight can't get in, and that prevents the microalgae living here from doing photosynthesis. Pollution from sewage is even worse. And if the water gets too dirty with sand, soil, or trash, a problem called siltation happens. It's as if the lake slowly gets clogged, holding less and less water. And besides, this can also damage the turbines and shorten the power plant's lifespan. Raise the sensor here, and you can see what each tip measures: oxygen level, acidity, conductivity, temperature, and turbidity, which is how much we can see through the water, because this equipment operates at the bottom, in the middle of the lake. A small brush at the tip cleans the sensors, and it smells like fish. They transmit the data in real time to the database, but there are some things that can't be measured here, like nitrogen, phosphate, heavy metals, or other pollutants. So a team has to come here from time to take these measurements and maintain the raft. By putting all this data together, they can assess if there has been any kind of change in the water and if all the care they're taking is having any effect. Around the reservoir, there is still a strip of forest vegetation that is more than 1,300 kilometers long. It serves as a barrier, like a filter against mud, dirt, and pollutants. It's the riparian forest of the reservoir. If we look from above, in a satellite image or a drone image, you can see that there's a kind of forest outline around the entire Itaipu lake. Now, just look at everything we've seen today. Protection of springs, care for plants and animals, terracing the soil, monitoring the lake. All of that is planting water. It's not creating water out of nothing. It efficiently uses the water already circulating. And this isn't just for Itaipu. The water that supplies the cities also needs this care. Sao Paulo, for example, has a serious water shortage problem because the rivers aren't well taken care of. So it's not just an issue here. The whole world needs water and needs to take better care of it. What is being done in Itaipu serves as a big laboratory. It's a real example of how to preserve the environment, ensure high-quality water, and produce energy for millions of people, all at the same time. This is the third video we've recorded here in Itaipu. So, if you want to know the basics of how the plant works, there's a really cool video we made almost 10 years ago. It's still very up to date, and last year we went into several restricted areas that are part of the security of this huge dam. If you haven't seen it yet, it's worth checking out.